Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I am going to show you how to make the base album that I used for this spooky Halloween mini album project. I've shown you this in the walkthrough video, and now I want to kind of show you how I created this. I got a lot of my inspiration from various YouTube videos I watched on mini albums. I've been kind of into watching them lately, and it's been a great source of inspiration. But I want to walk you through how to create this. So if you hadn't looked at the walkthrough, I'll make sure to link to it. But this album basically has 4 pages. The album measures 6.5 by 6.5 and holds basically, I believe it's over 20 pictures, various sizes from 2x2, 3x4s, some 3.5s by 5s, and some 4x6s. And it also has a little element of having some pull-out pocket pages in it, and some folio pockets, and also some regular pockets. So I'm going to walk you through how to create the base album for this. And it's a great album that you can use for so many different projects. There will be a link in the video description to a PDF with the supplies list and cut list for this, so that you can create this on your own. So let's get started. I'm going to talk to you first about the supplies I used for this. I'm going to move my album off to the side. So basic supplies you're going to need is, you're going to need 2 pieces of 12 by 12 chipboard. You want a medium weight chipboard that's going to hold up well. You're going to need 2 pieces of a medium weight 12 by 12 cardstock, roughly probably 65 to 80 pounds in weight. This works well because this is what you're going to use to wrap the outside of the album with. Then you're going to need probably roughly 20 pieces of a good strong, I'd say heavyweight, probably more than 80, more towards 100. I used 110 pound cardstock for this. This is going to be what you're going to make your pages and your inserts out of, and this is very heavyweight, and it's going to hold up really well to cutting and scoring and creating the album. So basic supplies. You're going to also need some strong adhesive. I use this adhesive. It's score tape. I use the 1/4 inch diameter, and I also use the 3/8 inch diameter score tape. I end up using probably about close to a roll when I do it. I also use this corner chomper, corner rounder. I use this on some of the inserts to just give a little rounded corner. I'm going to also need a, this is a 1 3/4 inch circle punch, and this I use to make my tabs. I need, of course, some scissors, and I also have my scoring platform, and I have my scoring tool with a stylus. I'll just put these aside for now. And then, because one of the most important things, of course, is going to be my 12-inch trimmer. Now, I have 2 blades that I use for this. I have one that I've marked it with a C on it, and that is a little bit more dull than my regular blade. I try to, especially when I'm doing a major project of cutting cardstock and pattern paper, that I have a fresh blade so that it doesn't fray the edges. But with this blade I keep here, I use this for only the chipboard. And I do it, it gives me a much cleaner pass on it. So, and then of course my other blade. So I'm going to start with cutting the chipboard. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take out my regular blade and put it aside. Oh, I also forgot to mention, I like using some Post-it notes so that as I'm cutting my pieces, so that I do all of the cutting before I start to assemble, that I can put them in piles and write the size of the piece on it. That way I know what it is that I'm looking for when I'm pulling things together. So let's start first with cutting our chipboard. You're going to be cutting 2 pieces that are 6.5 by 6.5. Now, one thing I want to point out, chipboard has, so if you take a piece of chipboard and you hold it, you see how bendy this side is, rotate it and see how bendy. This how this does not bend as much. This is the side I want to have be vertical. So that way when I create this, if I was to create this way, the album itself would start to bend a little bit. Creating it this way, you're not going to have as much bend. Just a little FYI. So I'm cutting this at 6.5. So I'm going to line this up, and I always prefer to use this area for lining up versus this, because sometimes this doesn't always completely come out correctly. And I always like to start at the bottom. So let's move my little bit better focus here. So I'm going to hold this here. I'm going to bring it up there. And now if you notice, because of the fact if I'm using that slightly duller blade, it didn't cut all the way through, but it is a much cleaner cut. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to bring the blade back down, and I'm going to bring this up one more time. And that should be, put that scrap aside, and I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to do another 6.5. Just make sure I'm lined up on the right. Yep. And then again, flip it over. And pull my scrap out of the way. So just get this. So that's one piece of the cover. That's one cover piece, I should say. Now I'm going to do the same again. Another 6.5 by 6.5. And it does, you do get to a certain point with the blades where it's going to be really, very dull. So then what I usually do is the blade I have in my trimmer then becomes my chipboard blade. And I just mark it with a little black C, and it just kind of lets me know which one I'm working with. So I'm going to put that aside, rotate this. And one more cut. And I'm going to put I'll put my chipboard aside. So that's a 6.5 by 6.5. So there's my front and my back pieces. Now I want to cut my spine. My spine is 1/2 inch by 6.5. So I already know that this piece here is 6.5. So I'm going to bring this in to the 1/2 inch mark and cut. Again, flip it over. And cut. So now I have my two pieces in my spine. So I am going to put those aside, and then I am going to cut the pieces for my pages. So what you're going to need is back up a second. I need to cut what I'm going to need to cover the inside. So underneath this pattern paper, I've covered the inside of the front cover and also the inside of the back cover with the heavyweight cardstock, just to kind of give a clean line. And then I also need to cut the piece I'm going to be using to hold these pages in place. So let's do that first before I move on to something else. So these are all, so I'm going to need two pieces. Take the thing back out. I'm going to do 6.5 by 6.5. And that's what's going to cover the inside. And yep, thanks for reminding me. I forgot to swap my blade back out from my nice, clean cardstock blade. 6.5 by 6.5. That's one. I'm just going to put that aside in that pile. That's the book itself, the spine and everything. And then another piece that is going to be 6.5. And I'm saving all of these little scraps because some of them I'm going to use to make the pockets and the tags and the mat elements. Another 6.5. So I'm going to kind of put my pieces in a pile over here so that I don't lose them. Now what I need to do is I need to cut one piece that's going to basically be what's going to hold my pages in place. Now this piece is going to be 6 1/4 by 6 1/8. So let's cut this at 6 1/4. Keep my scraps by 6 1/8. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to pull out my scoring platform here. Just move things around on my desk a little bit. Now we're gonna do a bunch of mountain and valley folds on this. Now what we need to do is and I will show you how we do this. So I'm cutting on the 6 1/4 side. That's the long side. The 6 1/8 is my height on this. I'm sorry, I meant to say I'm scoring, so I'm just gonna be looking aside at my measurements. We're gonna start with 3/4 of an inch. And again, like I said, all of these cut list and supply list, along with scoring information, will be in the PDF of directions. So first score 3/4, then 1 1/4. And I gotta go over it twice. And then 1 3/4. Make sure that's all the way down. All right. And then I'm gonna go to 2. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna give me 1/2 inch tall page holders with 1/4 of an inch space in between each pages. And there's gonna be, this gives me 4 pages for the album. And I'm sure you could do more if you want. I liked 4, it felt like it was a good size, worked well with this. So I just scored at 2. Now I'm gonna go to 2 1/2. And then 3. And then I'm gonna go to 3 1/4. And then I'm gonna go to 3 3/4. And then 4 1/4. And then I am gonna go to 4 1/2. And then I'm gonna go to 5 1/4. Is it 5 1/4? No, sorry, 4 1/2. I'm looking at my directions as I do this. 5, and then I'm doing 5 1/2, and then that's the last piece. So it's hard to see it on camera, but there's a lot of little mountain and valley folds that we're gonna do with this. So I'm gonna put this aside, and I'm gonna work on cutting some more of my pages. So that I'm gonna put, so right now I have a pile that has my 3 chipboard pieces for the front cover and back cover and spine. And then I've got my inside covers and my kind of what they call a gusset hider. It hides the inside of the spine, but also these are gonna be page holders. So that I'm gonna put aside. Now I'm gonna do some more cutting before we move on to start assembling. And so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take, and now I need to basically cut the pieces I need for my pages themselves. So I need 4 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. I've already cut a few of these, just for expediency's sake. 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So I'm gonna add that to the pile I have. I've already marked this. Those are part of my pages. And then I'm gonna need 4 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 7 1/4. So 6 1/4. I don't think you guys need to see me cutting every single last little piece, but basically it's the same thing, 7 1/4. So that's this. So I've got 4 of these. And then I've got what I need for my inserts is I need 4 pieces that are 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. So one last piece for my pages. Okay, so there's my pages. These are going to be the inserts that are going to go inside the pocket pages. Now I need a few pieces for my tags, for my photo mats, etc. So what I'm going to do is I need to get 2 pieces that are 7 1/2 by 3 1/2. So this is where using what's remaining of my 8 1/2 by 11 scraps. So this one I want 7 1/2 by 3 1/2. That's one. Yeah, I try to save all of these. So 7.5, 3.5. So these are your basic pockets. What this is for is basically this pocket here. So I've got those two pieces cut. Then I'm gonna need two pieces that are 5.25 by 6. Now I can get this out of one piece, both of these pieces out of one piece of paper. So I want 5.25 by 6. And this is going to give me my folio pocket. That's one. Five and a quarter by 6. Those are my folio pocket pieces. And now what I also need is I need four photo flap mats, and that's basically going to be oops, let me pull it to the right. This piece here that's going to flip out that holds a 4x6 photo. Those are basically 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. So I think I should have enough with this, but I'm going to double check. Let's see, 4 3. I have just enough. I'm just going to trim it down a hair. This is from my earlier cutting. So 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. Do another one. I needed 2 of these, so 4 3/4. Yeah, just a tiny bit off. Works well. Try to utilize this, save as much paper as I can. Okay, so that's that. Now, other than the tags, I still need to cut what I need for my frame, and also for this large pocket in the back. So for my frame, I am going to need, let me just pull out my pieces. So the frame, basically, the base of the piece is 4.5 by 3.5, and then you're going to create the frame above it that has that opening. So we're going to go 4.5 by 3.5. That's the base. And then the next piece is going to be, I'm going to do it at, let's see, I just want to make sure it's going to be 4.5, because it's going to match the same width, but now we want to score it. So we're going to take this to be, so this will be 4 and, just want to make sure I get the right measurements. 4 and, taking it correct, making sure I'm taking it in correctly from both sides. 4 3/4. And then I need a little piece of window film, which I'll grab in a minute. And then for my large pocket, I just want to make sure I've got the right pieces, making sure I know what I've got. I've got my list over here to the right, so pardon me if I hesitate a little bit. So for the large pocket, I need one piece that is 7.5 by 4.5, and then another piece that is 6.5 by 4.5. So I'm going to cut this 4.5, and then 7.5, and then the next piece is going to be 4.5 again. And this one is 6.5. Okay, so right now I've got a lot of my pieces cut. They're kind of all over the place. So what I'm going to do is just move some things aside, and I am going to start to assemble this, and I'll walk you through. But first, before I do that, I am going to grab my acetate sheet if it is in. Yep. So I want a piece of acetate, and it's a little hard to see, of course, on camera. So I want that acetate piece for the frame is going to be basically 4 by 3. And if it's okay if it's a little over, because we are going to be gluing it in. So that's the last piece of the frame, is this little piece of kind of window sheets acetate. So let me just put that aside. And I hope I haven't forgotten anything, but we'll find out as I start assembling this. So you guys will have to just bear with me. So I'm going to put my trimmer aside for now. But what I want to do before I kind of move on is I'm going to do some scoring. So I'll start with my frame because it's right in front of me. So the frame, we're going to basically score on the 4 3/4. We're going to score at a 1/2 inch in on either side. So that would be 4 1/4. And we're going to take the little bit of a 1/8 of an inch next to that. This just kind of gives a little bit of a raise because this photo piece in this can slide out. So I'm going to just put this aside until we're ready to create the frame. Now my large pocket in the back, the 4.5 by 6.5 piece, I'm going to score that at 4. Put this aside. And the 4.5 by 7.5 piece, I'm going to score that on 1/2 inch on 3 sides. So 7, 1/2 inch, rotate it, and then at 4. So that's the other part of that pocket. Put that aside. My 2 mats that should be 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. I am going to basically score them at 4 1/4. That's all I'm going to do with that. If you want, you could always use a pencil to write on these so that you know what they're for. I'm just trying to be good about putting things in certain places. So, and then here's my 2 folio pieces. I am going to score these. Basically, I'm going to take it and I'm going to do it from the side. 1/2 inch here. Rotate it. And another 1/2 inch here. I'll have to do a little bit more cutting as I do this, but right now I want to get these things scored, and then we can move on to starting to assemble the album. And I'll give you my little tips and tricks that I've learned as I've been creating. I've done a few mini albums lately, which has been a lot of fun, and I want to share with you what I have learned. So those are my folio pockets. And then my small pockets, I'm going to do like I did with the 4.5 by 7.5. So I'm going to score it 1/2 inch here, and then at 7 here, rotate it, score it at 3. Oops, make sure I'm in the groove. Don't worry if you do like I did and do a little kind of offline, it's going to get covered by our pattern paper when we decorate it. I'm not going to really show the decorating of this because, but I will include in the supply list like what sizes I used for the different pages for the mats so that you can kind of pre-cut your own pieces, but I'll walk through page by page with what size you need for that. Don't worry about that. That will all be included because realistically, this is a base you can take, create, and do whatever you want with it on your own. So that's right now. Oh, almost forgot. One last piece of scoring. My pages. Now there's 2 parts to each page. There's a 6 1/4 piece by 6 1/4, and then there's a 6 1/4 by 7 1/4. On the 6 1/4 by 7 1/4, I am going to score basically a 1/2 inch here and 6 3/4 here. So basically a 1/2 inch on each side. And this is what gives me my pocket once I assemble these. So that's my 6 1/4 by 7 1/4. So I'm going to put my pages and my inserts aside because right now what I want to work on is putting the album together. So this is where my 12 by 12 medium weight cardstock comes into play, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use some of my 3/8 inch score tape along one side. And I try to be careful not to get my fingers too much on the back of the score tape so that it doesn't get unsticky, but it does happen. Oh, I almost forgot one of my most important tools for this. I'm sorry, everybody. Bone folder. I mean, how can we not use a bone folder with this? I use a bone folder to kind of burnish over my adhesive once I've placed it on. And then whether you use your fingernails, I happen to like this little quick pick tool from Stampin' Up, and I use this to basically pull up, because sometimes these nails don't want to cooperate with me for getting under the adhesive to remove the backing, so I often will use this quick pick tool to kind of shimmy under there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this, and I kind of try to use like a line on my grid mat or on my table to just kind of help line it up, one piece to the other piece. And then once you've adhered it, again, go over it with the bone folder to give it a good burnish. Now, one thing you're going to be careful of when you're putting your pieces on this to create it, you're going to be careful that you make sure that this seam is on the back page of the album. So that's just something to be wary of, and just a little FYI. Now, what we're going to start to do is assemble this. So I'm going to put this aside for a second, and I'm going to pull out my chipboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put score tape on the back of my chipboard, all of the pieces. So I try to make sure that I put this piece, I'm going to line it up about 1 inch in and 1 inch down. So I pull out my trusty, I have a ruler that I use quite frequently. I think it's underneath a few pieces over here. I've got quite a mess going on, guys, and I'm sorry. I gotta figure out where my ruler is. It's tucked underneath something here. Oh, of course, it disappears when I want to use it. That's nothing unusual. Oh, I found it. This is an old quilting ruler that I've had for years, which I love it. I've used it so often. So I'm going to take my, and if you are not comfortable with using a ruler like this, you can always draw a line or use your scoring platform to score lines where you're going to be lining up your piece. That is not a problem. It's basically what works best for you. I am definitely one for using rulers to help me line everything up. So I am going to take my ruler. I am going to line up along 1 inch mark here and here. So I know that this is 1 inch in, and then I'm going to go 1 inch down. And then I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to just butt my chipboard up against it. And I always go over, burnish it with my bone folder. Now, I have a little cute tool set which I use, which is for doing mini album stuff like that. I picked it up off of Amazon, and I will include links to these pieces on the descriptions. But this basically helps me space the cover and the spine pieces. You can basically, what you kind of want is a width in between your cover piece, your spine, and your other cover piece, equivalent to about 3 thicknesses of your chipboard. So you can take some of your scrap chipboard that you have from when you cut your pieces and place it upright in between. That it's whatever works best for you, but I find a 3-piece thickness works best for putting this on. So, and for giving it enough space so that it opens cleanly and also closes cleanly. So I'm just going to take my adhesive off the back of my spine pieces. Okay. And put this in and use this guide to kind of give it in the right spot. So that just kind of gives me a nice spacing in between. So I'm gonna do this last piece. So I'm gonna add my spine piece. And remember, I'm trying to make sure that that seam, the overlap, is behind what's gonna basically be my back cover of my album. So that way, there are, I believe, and I know some people have told me that they've been able to find 12 by 24 medium weight cardstock at some stores. I haven't found it yet, but I've heard that it is out there. And so if you find that, that's great. You don't have to seam two pieces together, and you can just work with one piece, which makes it a lot easier. So you don't, and I have messed it up. I have done it where the spine ends up on the over seam ends up on the front, which drives me crazy. Okay, so here we go. So there's my pieces adhered. Now I need to do a little bit of movement here. I'm gonna just move my undermat here out of the way because I need to cut off this excess. And to do that, I am gonna just move this. I've got my self-healing mat underneath. I'll put this back once I get this cut. So what I'm gonna do is I have a nice little X-Acto knife, and I'm gonna use my ruler, and I'm gonna cut out 1 inch from the edge of the back spine. So that just gets rid of that piece of cardstock. And then I need to cut also on this side. So again, I'm going to cut 1 inch away and hold that down nice and tight. And get all the way down. Just one little piece there. And don't worry if it's a little jagged, because it all is going to disappear. So now that I've got that, I need to cut my corners. You can do that. There's a couple ways. You can use your ruler and cut. The set I have also happens to have this little kind of corner element. I just kind of line it up on my corner of my album and cut away. And I'm going to do this on all 4 corners. And my last corner. Okay. My scraps. It's a nice little set. It comes with different widths for doing your spacing, but I'm gonna put my piece. So there's my basis of my album. Now what I'm going to be doing is bringing in these side pieces, and to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my score tape at the edge of the chipboard pieces. And you could, you don't have to go over this gap if you don't want to. I place it there, but I also place it at the edge of my cover wrap cardstock. Rotate it. We're going to go here. Over here. With any of my videos, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Or if you see an error, I definitely don't claim to be perfect at anything, so please let me know. I would really appreciate any and all feedback. Okay, so I've added my adhesive to there, and again, take out my bone folder, burnish it across, following the direction of the adhesive. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start here, and we're going to adhere the cover wrap over. Now, I find the best way to start this is to pick up your piece and kind of push it over so that you start to get this. And then taking your bone folder, and I use the fat end of it, running it along the edge here and bringing it in so that this way it just kind of gives it a nice crease. So now I'm going to take and remove the adhesive backing. Yeah, I need stock in this company. I go through quite a lot of the stuff. Now, when you adhere this, I find the best way to do it. So when you're going to pull this over, starting in the middle. So bring this in, gently work your way out to the sides, gently work your way out to the outside corner. Again, go over. So that just kind of gives you a nice clean corner. Now, I don't do the ends until I'm done with both sides. So we're going to repeat the same on this side. Okay, now that we've done our two sides, we're going to work at the top and the bottom. Now, best way to get a nice corner on these edges here is to take your bone folder and kind of go up the corner and around and in. So take it like this, and I'll show you it on the other side. So you're going to basically take, make sure I'm in camera. You're going to take it up and in. And this is going to just help fold this corner a lot nicer. And then I do the same thing. So I'm going to kind of press down to kind of start the crease. And then again, use my bone folder to kind of pre-crease the edge. Take my adhesive backing. And then I'm just going to bring this in. I sometimes have a little bit of adhesive hanging over the edge, but that's not. But see how this gives it a really nice sharp corner. And don't worry about any adhesive sticking out because you are going to be covering that over. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Definitely, it's always good to work from center out. So there's your basic covered album. Then I like to take my bone folder, basically bring this side up about a 90-degree angle, kind of give it a little bit of a score on that. Same thing here, bring it around, a little bit of a score. All right, so that's the basic album piece. And we'll put that aside. Now we're going to work on the kind of the gusset hider. And so I'm going to start folding. It's basically valley and mountain fold. So my 3/4 inch is a valley fold. And I'm just going to go over this. And then I'm going to move back. The next one is mountain. So what this is going to create is so you have a valley fold, a mountain fold, then it's going to be two valley folds, that little 1/4 inch piece that you have. So this, how it kind of gives you and then you have another Mountain fold, just want to make sure I've got this. So as you can see, it's going to start to build my pages up. My next one. So as you can, once you pull these together, you see 2 page bases. So this is what we're going to work our way through. And I'll indicate on the directions mountain and valley for you for the folding. So basically, what you end up with is, once you adhere this, you're going to have this piece, and it's going to have 4 pieces for your pockets. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go on the back side using my 3/8 inch score tape, and I'm going to put that on the one side of each page base. I think that's a technical term. I don't know. Could be. Okay, so I'm just going to use the bone folder. I want to get this adhesive nice and burnished on the piece. So I'm going to start with removing the adhesive backing. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to fold these in. So I've got 1 page holder. So that, like I said, this does 4 page bases. Oops. Trying to make sure my fold lines are all set. And then my last one. Just might need to go over some of the score lines a little bit. So as you can see, I'll hold it up like this. See how this looks? So you've got your basic, these are your page bases that will hold our pocket pages. And I'm just going to kind of go over the scoring with my bone folder just to neaten it up a little bit. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put adhesive on the back of this. And I'm going to do one other thing before I adhere this to the page. To the base of the book. So I'm going to put the adhesive here, here, across here, and then across here. Now I'm going to put my adhesive that will hold my pages on these while I've got this like this. It's just a lot easier. I'm going to put it on both sides. Okay, let me just use my bone folder, burnish this a little bit. I want these adhesives to be on there nice and securely and firmly. Okay, so because it's easier to do it now versus when you try to put the pockets on. So I'm going to add, I've only done on the outside of this, so I'm going to do a little more adhesive on the center of my spine. Like I said, I go through quite a lot of rolls of this, so I'm going to basically work this across the spine just to give a little bit more adhesion. All right, this here. Now we're going to add this. We're going to add our gusset page holders to the spine. I'll take the adhesive off the back. Just gotta get it to cooperate with me. There we go. It can be odd a little times working on something that's kind of scored. There we go. And one more. Now this is of course shorter than the pages because you want to be able to fit those pockets around. So this you're going to try to center this as much as possible on your spine. And it's a little bit shorter, so just trying to make sure it's in there securely. Use my bone folder, going in between each page holder here. And I am going to do what I did before because again I've added another layer of paper. I want to go down in my little pocket here and do this so that it will fold up nicely. Turn it around and I'm going to do this side again. I just got to move that over. Find my little pocket guide. There we go. Just had to start it. There we go. So now I've got my basics from my pages in here. Now I'm just going to adhere these two pieces of 6.5 by 6.5 cardstock to cover the inside of this album front and album rear. There's my basic album with my page holders. Now let's create our pocket pages. Get some of my scraps out of the way. These are my insert pages, going to move those off to the side. And I've got my 4 6.25 by 6.25 and my 4 6.25 by 7.25. So I've already scored these at a 1/2 inch on each edge. So I'm just gonna take care of my score lines. So for all of these, I'm gonna add my score tape on the folded area. So what we're going to do for each page is we're going to adhere one of the 6.25 by 6.25 pieces to the 6.25 by 7.25 piece that you just scored and folded over. And I try to do this as neatly as I can, because once you adhere this score tape, it does not want to come off. So I did one side, just make sure it's adhered, and then flatten it down to the other side. So this is what gives you that pocket. So I'm going to repeat this on each of the others. You're going to do this 4 times, and make sure you go over it with your bone folder to adhere it. Okay, now I've got 4 pocket pages that I need to adhere to my album base. So I like starting with the last one, so the rearmost one. What we're going to do is remove the score tape cover, and then we're going to basically slide this pocket down over it. I'm just going to kind of show you. This is not adhering it yet, and I try to make sure that my piece that's adhered in the back is kind of in the back of it. And this should be, and you can always trim down your spines a little bit if it's a little bit too wide, but this is basically what's going to happen. It's going to slide down like this. So I'm going to need to adhere and remove the adhesive cover. Just take this off. I'm being very careful on this. Like I said, this adhesive is very strong and likes to, as soon as it hits something, it wants to stick to it, and I'm trying to be very good about it. Okay, let's get this. And I find holding the pocket kind of closed and flat makes it go on a lot easier. And just push it down, all the way down to the base. Just make sure it's nice and snug. And then I'm going to use my bone folder to go over it. And then I'm going to put the other 3 pockets on. I'm going to follow the same process. And I'm going to just go over all of my pocket pages adhered with my bone folder. And see, there's your album, your 6 by 6.5 by 6.5 mini album with the pocket pages. Now I think I'm going to break at this point with this piece, so this will be part 1. In part 2 I will work on showing you how I created my inserts for the pockets, as well as my other pockets I have in my fold outs and my folio pockets. So I thank you so much for being with me for this, and I hope you join me for part 2. Thank you so much and have a great day.